everybody, and welcome to another episode of Lane One Making Waves. This week on the podcast, we have Lori Payne. Now, Lori is the director of swimming for the American College Connection. American College Connection is a recruiting education company that helps student athletes navigate the recruiting process. Now, if you're a swimmer who is in college, if you're a coach, if you're a parent who has someone swimming in college, you know that this process can be a little bit overwhelming and the rules seem to change every single year. So, within this conversation, we touch on so many important aspects within the recruiting process, whether it's what coaches are looking for in a recruit, navigating financial aid, and how American College Connection is helping swimmers utilize their resources to find the right fit for them. So, with that, let's dive in. So I'd like to take another moment to thank Lori for joining me today. I know you have such a busy and hectic schedule. I think it never slows down with college recruiting. In fact, it's started earlier than when I was in school. So thanks for taking the time to sit down with me today.
You're welcome. Looking
Awesome.
forward
So
to chatting.
yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Kind of just jumping right into it. You've been around swimming your whole life as an athlete, a coach, and now through your work with ACC, the American College Connection. So, what led you to ACC and making recruiting your focus?
Well, that's a good question. I was very happy as a college head coach at a nice D2 school, and I kept falling into the same recruiting company and kept using American College Connection over and over again. And I picked up the phone one day and started talking to the previous owner and realized, wow, this might be a really good fit for me. We both love to talk. And we were both good at sales, and I was ready to have a change off of the pool deck because my children were off to college at that point and headed that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, college recruiting is so important, and having those connections and people that you can rely on to help make those decisions is so vital in the recruiting and college process. How has your own experience as an athlete kind of influenced the way you help guide your athletes today?
Well, I knew what I didn't have.
Yeah.
And I mean there was absolutely nothing when I was recruited. This was in the very late 70s, and you were on your own, and we had no guidance whatsoever. We had no guidance from our club coach. Our parents certainly didn't know what to do. You know, it was a new world for them as well. So our goal at ACC is to, give them well-rounded education on the big thousand-piece puzzle, which really is college recruiting. It's not just calling a coach and saying, "Hi, I'm the perfect fit for you." It's, well, why are you the perfect fit? Do you know what the roster is with this team? Do you know who's graduating? Is your major there?
Yeah.
I mean, there are a million little pieces to make it all come together. And that's what our goal is here at ACC.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it's such a vital piece. I remember when my sister was being recruited, I'm the middle child. I have a younger brother, older sister. When my sister was being recruited, I think in she's gonna hate me, 2012, 2013. Um, my parents and all of us were completely blind to the college recruiting process. I mean, we had no idea what it entailed. We had to kind of figure out the college trips on our own. Our coach, thankfully, had been through the process before and helped guide us. But it's amazing how many families do go into it completely blind. And, having these resources available and having them kind of elevate the experience over the past couple of years has been absolutely huge. Like I said, I'm thankful I was the middle. So she kind of was the guinea pig for all of it. And then I kind of just followed suit. And by the time Bobby came around, he knew exactly what to do. But there's so many misconceptions about the recruiting process, and you kind of spoke on one just there that it's not just about calling a coach and saying, "Hey, I want to come to your school. Is there a spot for me?" There's so many little pieces that go into it. So, what do you find is the biggest misconception that swimmers and families have about the recruiting process?
Oh, that's a multi-tiered question.
Yeah.
I think people don't prioritize how important academics are
Mhm.
from the minute that you hit ninth grade.
Yeah.
There are no more B's if you want to go to an NYU or an Ivy League school or a top tier D3 in the NESCAC, or if you
Yeah.
want to go into engineering, you've got to stay on your academics all of the time. I'm not telling you to take 6 or 7 AP courses. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That'll tear you down and make you unhappy and kind of make all of swimming not fun for you or high school. But you've got to stay on top of your academics. I think that's an important piece because at the end of the day, there are not very many Ledeckis and Phelpses out there.
Yeah.
I think that we've noticed, especially in the last few years, the cost of college has skyrocketed, and the amount of athletic aid has decreased dramatically. There just is very little out there, and I think that a few years ago we were allowed to stack. The NCAA allowed stacking of academic and athletic money, but not every single school stacks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this really is, I would say those are the top two things. We used to speak about finances at the very end of a conversation.
Mhm.
Now we're trying to give an idea, plant the seed with the parents that, man, you need to start saving now
Yeah.
and start speaking to your financial advisor and start experimenting and looking for other ways to get your child through college. Can you still be a student athlete and work a little in college? Sure, you can. You can be a lifeguard. You can get into a work study program. There are many grants and scholarships out there available to you that schools don't even talk to you about. So you need to become
Yeah.
best friends with the financial advisor at your school. So I also think with the rosters, a lot of schools carry huge rosters. Some schools carry smaller rosters. It's a matter of where you fit in, and you want to be a viable part of that team. Where can you contribute? I mean, that is a relevant question that you always have to ask a coach. Where do you see me contributing?
Yeah.
And sometimes where you're recruited and the events that you're recruited in, you and I are both distance swimmers. They never would have recruited us for the 50 and the 100.
Nope.
Not a chance. I am the consummate two beat kicker.
Yeah.
And, to your point of our conversation earlier, diving off the block can be,
Mhm.
intimidating.
Yeah.
So, where can you contribute to your team? It's not a given because some coaches see other strengths in you that maybe your club coach didn't see and will start training you for an event that you never thought you'd be great at.
Yeah. I had the fortunate opportunity after I graduated. My first job was being an admissions counselor at a school. So I can 100% attest to, those grades and the financial aspect. A lot of students will come in 10th, 11th grade and they think that because they started putting in the effort those years when they started thinking about college that it will be enough. But you have to go all the way back to ninth grade. You have to have that focus very
Hmm.
early on because schools look at your whole transcript. It's not just your 11th grader or when you were being recruited. And the
Right.
financial aspect is absolutely huge. And I think when I was being recruited, money was the topic at the end of the recruiting process. So you kind of get to the end, you're like, okay, these are my top three schools, but I cannot afford to go to number one. I can't afford to go to number two, so it has to be number three. Being more transparent with scholarships, I think, is so important for families to be able to make the right decision and also to let kids know the reality of the situation. Because you might have a school that's number one, but it might not necessarily be, the puzzle piece where you fit in. So,
Right.
I mean, it's such a crazy process and it's changed so much over even the past 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
I remember going into high school and people thought that just because you got a scholarship that it was a full ride scholarship. And so also informing, the general public that you can be the fastest swimmer, but you're not going to get a full ride. Full rides are very, very rare, especially in a sport that was competing for, for men. We only had 9 scholarships. I know that's changed. Women only had 13, but there's so many misconceptions about the recruiting process, and it's different for each and every sport as well. So it's just so much information that can feel so overwhelming. How do you think the recruiting landscape has changed over the past 10 to 15 years?
Oh my gosh, it's not even the same
Yeah.
landscape as it was. About 6 years ago, one of the things that happened, it might have been a little bit longer than that, but they dropped the recruiting,
Yeah.
the approaching recruiting class to the end of 10th grade.
Mhm.
It used to be 11, and that was to bring in some of the minor sports all under the same recruiting umbrella of June 15th, sophomore year. That was a big one. I
Yeah.
mean, little things that are not important to, well, they were important to us, but they're not anymore. But now the kids have unlimited food
Yeah.
access to food. 10 years ago, they didn't have that.
Mhm.
Rosters were pretty much unlimited. If you had the pool space, we could bring you on. And of course, I'm sure you all know now with the latest NCAA rule changes that depending on your conference, rosters are greatly reduced, and
Yeah.
it's important that you can swim 3 events and score, in the roster championship or in the conference championship.
Mhm.
That is not the recruiting rule for every school. I want to make that clear. That is mostly for the Power Four, and the very top D2 and D3 are looking for those 3 events. There are about 700 schools out there with swimming. Not all men and not all women, but mostly men
Yeah.
and women combined. We've noticed a big change. There was a time period about 3 years ago where colleges were dropping swimming,
Mhm.
and now we've had new swim teams added in. I think as long as swimming remains an Olympic sport, we're going to be in pretty good shape. Um, I think that I absolutely love telling my student athletes that there's only 20 hours of athletic quote unquote time in a 7-day week, and that includes your racing, your team meetings, your weight room, and your water time. So everything is much more concentrated, more focused, similar to coming off of an average of a 35-hour high school classroom week.
Yeah.
You go down to about 12 and a half hours of classroom work, actually in class work for 15 credit hours.
Mhm.
Now, the kids are all excited about that. They think that's the best thing they've ever heard, and it is until you start thinking, well, these classes are tougher
Mhm.
and we have much longer papers. And oh, wait a second, we have a training table time, we have weight room time, we have to do our own laundry time,
Ah.
as a mom and dad aren't there to help us out anymore. So the very first semester of your career can be very, very challenging. Now that has not changed.
No.
That has not changed, but it's a matter of certain things have stayed the same. Your time management is still terribly important. You're keeping up with your classroom. A coach is going to, by far, reach out to a stronger academic student
Yeah.
so they don't have to worry about that student during the school year.
Yeah.
That has not changed. So,
Yeah, no, there's so many similarities, but also it feels like a completely different playing field, even from, when I was recruited back in 2015. I can't even imagine being a sophomore in high school and trying to balance club practices and high school and, going through swim meets every other weekend on top of being recruited by colleges and making sure that you're in touch with them throughout that whole process. But also in the same breath, you have more time to kind of make those connections with the coaches, to learn more information, to learn from the team, and to have that outreach. So it's kind of a pros and cons on how you weigh it. But yeah, I mean, the same thing with high school applies to college. If you don't have a certain GPA, if you're not performing academically, you're going to be ineligible to, you know, go to the swim meets, to go to the championships. So it's so important to be able to utilize the resources around you. And in college, we were there, very thankful that it did become a holistic environment. I mean, you have your academic advisor, you have your financial aid advisor, you have all of your professors that have office hours, you have an athletic trainer, you have a sports psychologist.
Right.
Now, that might not be true at every school, but there are so many people out there to help you that I find, your freshman year, you might be a little bit apprehensive to asking for help because you want to figure it all out on your own. But it's so important to look at the resources you have and to utilize them so that, you're setting yourself up for success, not only your freshman year, but up into your senior year, because those classes only get harder.
That is the
Um,
truth.
what do you find that college coaches look at beyond those fast times? I know you spoke about academics, but are there any personal characteristics that you find coaches tend to gravitate towards?
Yes, that is a wonderful question, and I think a question that is can oftentimes is ignored. I hear constantly from parents, "Oh, my son is so busy. Oh, my daughter is so busy." I don't hear that from the kids. The
Yeah.
kids are the ones that are doing it. They're the ones that are engaging. They're the ones that want to be busy. I could not imagine sitting around
Hmm.
every day after school without anything to do. Extracurricular activities of any sort are good. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel there. We want you to stick with something that you believe in. I always did Special Olympics.
Yeah.
Anything along that line was important with me. Anything to help the elderly. That is something I still do both of those things to this day.
Yeah.
They're my passion. So find a passion. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. I always tease when I have a club coach on the line and I'm giving a seminar to 100 kids. Coach Mark would love it if you'd volunteer in time for their 10 and under meet.
Yes.
I mean, find something that is good for you, grab a friend, and be consistent with it. If you love going to the animal shelter, and you have a swim meet on Saturday, well, go on Wednesday afternoon for a couple of hours. If you're playing classical piano, jazz piano, if you're in the marching band or playing the saxophone or the violin, stick with that. That shows that you have a life outside of the swimming pool.
Hmm.
Coaches like to see yourself in a leadership role.
Yes.
That is huge because coaches don't recruit in 1 and 2 year cycles. They're looking about 5 years out.
Yeah.
They're looking to replace the seniors that are on the squad this year, and they're looking at eighth and ninth graders already, and they're starting to track them, especially the ones that are at the top of Swimming World magazine and at
Yeah.
Swim Swam. They're looking way, way out, and they like to see how a student athlete develops.
Hmm.
If you are part of student council, well, be a part of it. Don't just be a number. Be the secretary or the treasurer if you're good with math. Thinking ahead for a teenager is very difficult.
Yeah.
They struggle to think 30 minutes down the road, that, oh, I've got to be at practice in 30 minutes. Mom, I haven't eaten yet. Where's my food? Well, you learn how to make your food,
Yeah.
But yeah, the coaches are looking for leadership roles, kids that are not afraid to step up and speak up. They like well-respected student athletes. They don't want anyone who's going to cause any trouble. Now, that's almost impossible to predict between an 11th grader in high school and a sophomore in college.
Yeah.
Because you've grown so much physically and mentally. Your whole persona is different than what it was as a young teenager. But yeah, they are looking for the student athlete of the future, one that is solid in school, one that can be a contributor, one that is not afraid to step up and help without being asked,
Hmm.
and one that is going to be a team leader and set good examples, lead the lane,
Yeah.
find that clear water, set a great example, and have perfect underwaters,
Yeah,
So,
being motivated is a huge piece of it. It's so easy. And I say it's easy, but sometimes it's challenging, but it's so easy to just show up to a place. But it makes all of the difference when you show up and like you said, you're able to lead, you're able to speak confidently, you're able to lead a lane. And I mean, volunteering may seem challenging to fit into a schedule when you're, in high school and also doing extracurricular activities, but as you said, it can also just be staying around for that extra session to help time for the 10 and unders meet. It can be going to, as you said, the animal shelter. I know I absolutely love doing that with my mom, and now
Mhm.
I have too many animals and I keep showing up with more. But it's so easy to find things that you are passionate about and to find things that don't necessarily feel like you're working. And being in high school, you're in such a great opportunity to be able to kind of pull friends in with you. You know, pull a friend in to help time with you. It doesn't have to be a solo activity. You can make it something fun and enjoyable. But it goes such a long way on like even just a resume to apply for college because just because you've been recruited to a school doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to go through the application process. You still have to submit those transcripts, do those essays, submit those extracurricular activities. So the admissions panel is also looking at all of those as a whole to admit you into the school, and
Yeah,
then you get to be a part of the team.
right.
What is your best advice for athletes starting the recruiting process so early in high school? I know you said colleges are looking at eighth and ninth graders, which is myself in eighth grade. I'm like, nope, but what are
Yeah.
they? What's your best piece of
Well,
advice?
they are looking at them. They're not
Yeah.
reaching out to them.
Yes.
And let me make that very clear because that is against all the rules in the world.
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
starting to watch. They're like the watchers.
Yeah.
And I think if you start early with being strong in academics and making commitments to what are important to you,
Hmm.
you're going to migrate and become a strong student athlete by 10th grade or so. I always knew I was going to swim in college.
Yeah.
And it was never a question with me. Growing up in South Florida, way back then, there wasn't anything but swimming for girls,
Yeah.
you know. And but I think with the starting so early thing, I think what's important is you start being aware of what's around you
Hmm.
in the swimming world. Start observing the really good swimmers. What are they doing that makes them fast? Do you see them talking to their coach after the race? Do you see them getting a really good warm down? That's every bit as important as the warm up. Start cultivating your little mantra. What makes you tick, and you've got to be a watcher also, as a young student athlete. As you get a little bit older, then you can start stepping into that leadership role,
Hmm.
being the first one in the pool.
Yeah.
Of course, Summer, you and I were the first ones in and the last ones out.
Yeah.
I know. There's a bumper sticker that says, "When the going gets tough, the sprinters get out."
Oh no.
I was always jealous of the sprinters, but I think I think that you always want to be thinking forward and watching and observing. We spent a lot of time under the bleachers
Hmm.
playing cards and
Yep.
tic-tac-toe and Monopoly and eating pixie sticks and everything, but when the big guys came out and the finals came out and we weren't there, we were there rooting everybody on. It's never too early to be a good teammate.
Yes. Yeah.
One thing that I find um, very, very important to share with you is that you don't gossip. You don't talk. You wish everyone well, even if they're not your favorite people. You might find yourself on the same college team someday with them, or you might be working and going for a job interview, and it's that person that you didn't like that's interviewing you. So I think with the recruiting as early as it is, you have to take some kind of responsibility to set yourself up,
Yeah.
to be successful. Now your parents are they're working behind the scenes, but they have things that they're trying to do to get you to move forward as well.
No, developing those habits as early as you can only helps in the process because then you're not retroactively trying to, you know,
Catch up.
find joy in jumping in the pool first is something you've kind of
Right.
already established, whether it's voluntarily or not. I know our practice just started a lot earlier than the sprinters did.
Yeah.
But also the value in being a good teammate is one that I can't even describe. You have sportsmanship and camaraderie in high school and cheering on your teammates, but once you get to college, it kind of feels like it's just multiplied by 100 because then you also have those dual meets. It's kind of like high school swimming on steroids. There's so much camaraderie, there's so much teamwork that goes in behind the scenes that if you develop those traits and those characteristics early on, it's never going to hurt you to wish someone good luck. It's never going to hurt you to say good job to someone. And that's something that I've actually noticed kind of decreasing a little bit in, club swimming is when I grew up, my parents were always like, you go to the lane next to you, you say good job. You go to the lane on the other side, you say good job.
Yes.
And I've gone to quite a few club meets where it's kind of just a handful of students doing that. So I really think it's something that we need to bring back. Is just that, sportsmanship, because as I said in college, it just gets amplified by so much.
No, I think you're right about that. Being gracious and be kind is only going to come back to you in a good way.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
For athletes who might not be top recruits, what are some pathways to still find the right college fit?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question. There is more to life than D1 swimming.
Yes.
There are there are five divisions. We have junior college, and let me speak to that for just a moment. If you're not terribly strong in school, or you're vacillating on majors, or you just don't love it, but you love to swim, there are lots of junior colleges out there that will help you stabilize your schoolwork. That's what they're there for,
Mhm.
get you prepared to finish your last 2 years in a 4 year college. And along with that, you have some wonderful swimming
Yes.
and training to go along with that too. So I think that's a wonderful option. And then we have the NAIA, International Association of Interscholastic Swimmers or sports. And that is also another wonderful path to take, similar to junior college, that will help you stabilize. It puts you in a position to transfer if you want. You never want to go into a school with the intention of transferring.
Yeah.
That's a little bit self-defeating.
Yeah.
You want to go in with the goal of, I'm going to do the best I can be, putting your feet on the ground every morning, and that's your mantra. So you go into NAIA, and there's all sorts of fast NAIA schools, and there's slow NAIA schools, just like there are with all the other divisions. But that's another really good place to start. And the NAIA can be exceedingly competitive. They have schools just like junior college all over the country in places that are desirable locations. When you get into D3, the vast majority of colleges are D3. There are almost three times as many D3 schools as there are D1 and D2 combined. So D3 there are a lot of research schools in D3. Some schools are very, very small with D3. They're more like localized, in your area. That doesn't mean that they're not strong academically. We're all in a position to do as well as we want academically. Every single school has an honors college, or I
Yeah.
should say, almost every school has an honors college. So if you don't feel that oh, well, this doesn't have this and that doesn't have that, then you go straight to the honors program of that college and apply and then see how you're feeling about it.
Yeah.
But D3 is a great jumping off point for a lot of young coaches.
Hmm.
That is true, and you'll see them move up through the ranks. I've been in this so long that I've literally seen this. One of my closest friends was a D3 coach, and now he is associate head coach at a mid-major D1. And I'm just so
Wow.
proud of him,
Yeah.
And so D3 is a great jumping off point depending on where you are academically with D3. Some of those D3s are just, top of the line,
Yeah.
um, and then moving on to D2. D2 has come a long ways, I think, in the last few years.
Hmm.
Their landscape has grown tremendously. Some of the schools are incredibly fast. A lot of them are state funded. So, their uh, cost, I hate using that word, but their expenses are a little bit less,
Hmm.
than some of the D3 schools. Many of the D3 schools are private.
Yeah.
But then we go to D1, and there's plenty of private D1 schools too.
Yeah.
So that's where the academic aid comes in and it becomes so relevant again. But as I mentioned, I don't know, I don't know the exact number anymore, but somewhere around 700, maybe a little bit less, of schools that offer college swimming of as strong swimming as you want and as strong as academics that you want. They are out there. Now, you do make some sacrifices,
Mhm.
with location with some of the schools, but some kids are really, really happy being close to home.
Yeah.
And someone I get on an airplane and be, from Florida. My brother went all the way out to UCLA and we're from Miami.
Oh, wow.
So he took, and I just went north a couple hours,
Yeah.
to North Carolina. So, um, there's lots of options out there. It astounds me how few schools are that offer swimming that are in the West, other than California,
Yeah.
that offer swimming. But if you want to be in Arizona, there is a place for you. And it doesn't have to be Arizona State, there's smaller Arizona schools that offer swimming, or if you want to be in, oh, I don't know, Nevada near the Grand Canyon. There's schools there too. So, this is one of the things that we're so cognizant of, is giving our student athletes lots and lots of options to be successful.
Yeah, my father always said, he's like, if you want to swim in college, there is a place for you. It's just a matter of exploring your options and finding that place. But
Yeah,
I don't want to say like no matter your times or your education, but if you want this, there is a place for you. It's just finding where your puzzle piece kind of fits into the bigger picture.
that's right.
Where do you see parents helping in positive ways, and where do you see them potentially hurting in the process of college recruiting?
Well, let's talk about the positive ways first.
Yes.
Parents kind of run the show when you're a high schooler, right? And until you get that driver's license, and even then, they always have the keys, the keys to the car. But the biggest place the parents can help, of course, is just being an unconditional love parent, whether your student athlete wins or loses. You want to give them as many tools as they can to be successful if they're struggling in school. Anybody who's a part of the National Honor Society, part of being part of that society is tutoring in school. It's free. Parents, you should know that. If your child doesn't, then you want to disseminate as much information as you possibly can to make them successful. I know most people are doing tutoring for the SAT and the ACT now. I find that's always a good thing. There's also junior colleges and small colleges that offer that type of tutoring, and even junior college campus tutoring from some of the stronger students there can help your student athlete. So academics is pretty clear,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be explained too much. And then ultimately that falls on the student athlete. You want to swim in college and you want to swim D1 and you got to have these times and you got to be at least at 2.3.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, 2.3, that's pretty easy, but some kids do struggle in school. And so they're trying to make it acceptable for everyone. Um, Another thing that I find at a very, very, very young age, you've got to teach correct nutrition.
Yeah.
You know, um, there's got to be a lot of fruits and vegetables, and yes, of course, there has to be Chick-fil-A and pizza, not as a steady diet. You've got to learn how to eat properly because, as you get stronger in the pool and you're starting to get faster, in order to train at the higher level, you got to put the right food in your mouth. It can't be noodles the day or pasta the day before the swim meet. That's not going to do it.
Yeah.
So it has to be, consistent, great nutrition, because eventually your child is leaving your kitchen,
Yeah.
and they're going to school and they have to make proper selections that are going to make them successful. And that leads me to telling you, teach your child how to cook.
Yeah.
Start at a little age. I started with my kids when they were old enough to be on the step stool to stir the cookie dough.
Yeah.
Got to start them with the good stuff. But teaching your child how to cook is a great gift. It makes them self-sufficient. Teach them how to do their laundry.
Yeah.
My dad didn't let me out of the house until I knew how to change a tire, and this was for my bicycle. Change the tire, change the chain, fix the chain, blow up a tire, oil the bike. And when I got to the car, I had to be able to change the oil. I think my brother and I were the only kids that knew how to drive a stick shift.
Yeah.
You know, um, we had to learn how to be responsible and be able to rely on ourselves and not on everyone else. And I don't see that happening in today's society. Oh, just go to Jiffy Lube, go to Big O Tire. Well, Dad, teach your child, boy or girl, how to change the oil.
Mhm.
Make them as self-sufficient as you possibly can when they're little and training. And I mean, they should be having lots of fun with this still.
Yeah.
That's where the pivot comes, with boys and girls in their young teens that they think, oh, I don't like this anymore. This is starting to be an awful lot of work. Make sure they're still having fun. When I say teach them how to do the laundry, it's got to be more than hanging the towel up. I mean, really teach them how to do it. And then, of course, they have to have enough sleep.
Mhm.
And that is the hard thing. Take their phones away at night, or make sure that they've got a shutdown, time of 10 o'clock. I don't know. I got up at 4:45 every morning for years. I was
Good.
in bed by about 8:45.
Yep, same.
So, I mean, it's the obvious things that the parents can do to help. It's the follow through that's so difficult because today's society, so many families have both parents working.
Yeah.
And the rest of the household has to be maintained. The dog still has to be walked, and the kitties need to be fed, and the lawn needs to be mowed. So, everybody, the chore list I found in my house always worked really well.
Yeah.
You know?
It's absolutely amazing. I mean, I can go back to my freshman year in college, and I think it was probably 50% of our incoming class didn't know how to do laundry. We went
Uh-huh.
down because we had a laundry facility at the bottom of our dorm rooms. We went
Yeah,
down,
me too. Yeah.
like, they were like, "What's this?" I'm like, "That's detergent." Like, they're like, "So I just put it in there?" I'm like, we'll just stay here for a little bit and then we'll figure it out. But it's those basic things that oftentimes get overlooked, and parents might think that, they're helping by trying to make their child's life easier
Yeah.
by, cooking all of the meals, by doing all of the laundry and all of the chores. But when that kid then goes to a place where they are on their own, it's a disservice because they have no idea how to
Right.
function because those things were already previously done for them. And then that also makes their college experience all that much harder their freshman year because not only are they managing being away from home for the first time, but now they have all of these life skills that they're trying to learn on top of
Right.
their classes, on top of competing. So 100% agree, learn about proper nutrition and sleep. I mean, my gosh, I don't know how some kids do it. I did
Yeah.
part-time coaching and they're like, I went to bed at midnight. I can't go to bed at midnight right now without, suffering the next morning. So it's
Right.
like sleep is so important, especially at those ages. So, just making sure your kid is well-rounded as much as they can is only going to help in the recruiting and in the college process.
Right. It is. And I want to answer your second question about parents that one of the things you want to avoid as a
Yeah,
parent. As the parent of a student athlete, it's so hard because oftentimes you find yourself living vicariously through them.
yeah.
And oh, if I had been on the block, I would have done this, or why didn't you do this? We
Mhm.
don't criticize. As a parent, I was so proud of you. I loved your dive. The rest of the race could have been terrible.
Yeah.
Find something that you liked. And as you're driving home in the car, well, how'd you like that race? What would you have done differently? There never should be a criticism,
Yeah.
because children aim to please, just like the doggy wants to please you all the time. Your children want to please you too. Getting them to practice on time
Yeah.
is paramount. That sets a great example for them. Picking them up on time. The coaches don't want to sit around waiting for you to come. Figure out a carpool, whatever it takes to do that. Don't be that parent that is always buying out.
Yeah.
Show up at the swim meet. time for your kid. Do the concession stand, do the cleanup, put the lane ropes in or the touch pads in. Be up there cheering. I don't care if your cheer is the most or your whistle is embarrassing or your whistle is the loudest. Show support of your child. Have an extra towel for them. Make sure they're fed properly. Even then, you can give them carrots and apples and melon. My mother, growing up in Florida, we ate a lot of melon because there was a lot of liquid in it as
Yeah.
well, filled your tummy up. So, be supportive of your kid. Don't talk about anyone else's child.
Hmm.
You give them the same love that you give your own child. I think gossip is, oh gosh, the gossip amongst the parents is needs to be stopped.
Yeah,
It just needs to
I
be
agree.
stopped. So, it's very obvious things, support your child the best way that you can. I mean, you don't like it if you're out and your friends show up late or your friends talk potty mouth about you. Just be supportive and keep your gossip to yourself and teach your children the same thing. That's a big thing in recruiting.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
you don't want to talk about other student athletes.
Yeah, I mean, as you said earlier in the conversation, like your kids are watchers too. So not only are they watching the athletes that, may be seniors right now or performing at higher levels, but they're also watching their parents. And so many of those characteristics that you display is going to rub off on them. So you know, let coaches be coaches too. I mean, you don't have to come back and say, hey, you need to take like four more dolphin kicks off your wall. You don't need to
Right.
like do any of that stuff because ultimately, most of the times the swimmer already knows they're just looking for that compassion and that, love from their parent, which only will display in their personal and in their swimming career. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see swimmers make during the recruiting process?
Oh my gosh. Not communicating with coaches that have reached out to them.
Yeah.
That is paramount to keep the conversation going. I tell our kids a minimum of every 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Well, what do I talk about? I don't know. The sky is blue. There's snow on the mountains today. Coach, we went and watched a football game last night. How are you?
Yeah.
Don't forget to ask the coach, how are they? One of the very first things I teach our kids is research the coach that you're going to speak to. Did they
Hmm.
swim? Do you swim masters? Yes.
Yeah.
Do they have little kids? Well, if they have little kids, do your kids swim? You have to show interest in the coach as well as, so you have something that you can continue the conversation about. Coach, I saw that your team did really well this week and you beat, a rival.
Hmm.
You know, Coach, how's everybody, working together? If you're at a super hard school, for instance, an engineering school, most of the team is an engineering major. Coach, how does that work? Find pieces of interest, but you've got to stay in communication. You have to be on time for your phone calls. You
Hmm.
have to be incredibly polite every single time that you're on the phone or texting. Make sure your texts are grammatically correct. Now, my friends who know me will laugh at that because my text talking, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
sometimes doesn't turn out. It's not exactly what I said, and I'm so embarrassed sometimes. And I get teased unmercifully. But every single thing that you do when you speak to a coach is consider it part of your job interview.
Yeah.
You have to be super polite. You don't call a coach by their first name. It's got to be Coach Summer, Coach Lori. When you get on the deck and you've been recruited and you've signed, then you call them whatever they tell you. So I think the communication is the absolute most important piece during the recruiting process. Follow the team along that you're interested in.
Yeah.
Let the coach know about you. Coach, I had a good SAT score. Do I need to retake this again? Anything that you can think of,
Yeah.
but the communication piece is paramount.
Yeah. It's a two-way street. And sometimes I think in recruiting, the athlete may think that it's only the coach's responsibility to reach out to me to ask how I'm doing because they want me on their team. But ultimately, if that's a school that you really want to go to, they're going to take the student that seems more interested, that is more engaged, that is following along, that shows that they want to be part of that program because they are looking for students who are trying to buy into their program.
Right.
And it's amazing how often students will just leave an email opened and not respond, even if it's just a thank you for the kind message, like this is where I'm going. Like, never leave an email unresponded, even if it's just a thank you, because coaches ultimately are looking at that. And then when they go into that decision making process, your name is going to be one that sticks in their mind because, as you said, they showed interest in their life and in their team and in their college environment that they're building. So communication in any, if it's swimming, if it's business, if it's personal life, is just so, so paramount. So I'm just gonna double down on what you said and check your emails and respond to your phone calls.
It's true. And even when you're saying goodbye
Yes.
to a team that you're not interested in, or that you commit to a team that is the right fit for you, saying goodbye at the beginning and at the end of the recruiting process is just as important. They've spent time on you, phone calls on you, emails on you, text on you, and you have to be incredibly grateful and respectful. There's only about 2% of high school students that get recruited.
Yeah.
So we're a very special breed. And with the swimming world as small as it is, and boy, can I attest to that, because I still run into people all the time, everywhere that I knew way back when. You are ultimately going to see someone on the pool deck that could have recruited you.
Yeah.
You may go to work as a graduate assistant for them.
Mhm.
And you always want to leave a good taste in your mouth, in their mouth when you say goodbye.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for me, saying no to schools was one of the most challenging things because I always felt
Oh,
like I was
yeah.
disappointing them. I would get so nervous pacing around the house before I had to say no to a school. But as you said, I mean, some of those schools that I said no to, I mean, went to grad school there. I helped out on their pool deck. I went and worked professionally there. So never leaving a bridge burned because you were
Correct.
too scared to communicate or you were afraid of the response that you were going to get. So always respond.
Right.
Name, image, and likeness has been absolutely huge the past year, the past couple of years. It's been a big conversation in college sports. So, how do you see the NIL impacting recruiting, and what are some common misconceptions you see about it?
Well, that's we're in the very infant stages of this.
Yeah.
And we're going to see a lot of adjustments, I think, in the next maybe, well, certainly this school year and probably into next school year as well. I
Mhm.
think the NIL, a great portion of that, as you know, with the Power Fours, has the first thing it did was it reduced rosters,
Yeah.
especially within the SEC and the ACC. Again, remember, those are the most elite student athletes, or I should say athletes, not maybe not students, but not every single school bought into the NIL either.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of if your school accepted the proposal of name, image, and likeness, how is that affecting your scholarships? How is
Mhm.
it affecting your roster spots? We've heard that some schools that have are also giving a stipend to their student athletes. I think this is um, the NIL really and truly is not going to be the norm for most. It's
Yeah.
going to be business as usual for schools that didn't buy into the NIL. The scholarships that they had, from what we understand, is still going to be maintained.
Mhm.
And some schools will be intimidated by the NIL thing. And how can we get up to standard? Some you don't have to all the time.
Yeah.
So I think regarding the recruiting, I think the hardest thing is going to be with the reduced roster spots even more now than ever, the three events that coaches are looking for to score in their conference championships. It used to be um, mm, Some coaches are looking for instant gratification
Yeah.
and not wanting to train and cultivate
Hmm.
and look at the potential of said student athlete. They want a freshman at 18 years old who is still in a little boy's body.
Yeah.
I mean, we see an awful lot of 6 foot boys that are 140 pounds,
Hmm.
you know, standing on the block next to a 22-year-old man now,
Yeah.
who's 185 pounds.
Yeah.
So much stronger, bigger muscles, solid bones, more strategic ways to race. And I think that's really intimidating to a lot of kids.
Yeah.
It
Absolutely.
really is. And I think it's uh, difficult for me to fathom being a coach and not always looking to bring a kid to their next greatest race, to their potential. I don't know if this is going to be helpful or hurtful. That's my sidebar.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a change. And NIL, some people I think look at it and they're like, oh, these athletes are going to be making, so much money. They're going to be profiting off of, sponsorships and endorsements and this, that, and the other. But ultimately, unless you are a big name, especially in a sport like swimming, where we aren't as televised or we aren't as broadcasted,
Right.
the financial figures are not going to be as much as I think a lot of people are anticipating that they're going to be receiving. For families navigating the process, what are the benefits with working with a recruiting service like ACC compared to trying to kind of navigate the waters on their own?
Oh, well, where do I start? I think the biggest thing that we offer is our relationship with college coaches. I don't hesitate to get on a phone and call someone, email them, follow up. I said to you earlier how important communication was. My follow up to the coaches is also important. Now, I can give them every single thing in the book and they still may not take you,
Yeah,
but at least you have been put straight out in front of the coach instead of just a 50 million emails that a coach is trying to sort through.
yeah,
I was speaking to a very good mid-major coach this morning who is saying, I still need a distance freestyler. And I said, I'll get back to you after lunchtime and I'll give you who I have left, and who is still out there. I think that our process is very good from the education standpoint that we have timelines and this is what you need to do when and why. Well, why do you want me to take the SAT in April and not in February? Well, think about February. You're getting ready to either finish your high school times, your race times. You're getting ready to go into your big meets in March, the ISCA meet, the NCSA meets, the championship meets at NCAP, and around the country. You have spring break in March. Are you really going to be studying
yeah,
then? So, we talk about timing a lot, you're going to take a vacation now? No, 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 no. May we suggest you take a vacation after these dates? So I mean, we're really up on every single facet of what's going on. We offer a very personalized approach. We have it goes back to communication. We sometimes, more often than not, I hate to say, but we have the parents that are running the recruiting show and not the child.
hmm,
Well, the coaches don't want to talk to the parents.
yeah,
They want you to be far removed downstairs in the back corner of the house when your student athlete is on the phone. And some parents do try to take over this recruiting for them, and it's just the absolute worst thing you can do for your child.
yeah,
So, we educate the parents as well as we do the kids. When I give a seminar, I talk about social media. That will make or break you.
yes.
you know we've seen it go both ways. I've had experiences with a couple of kids. I had a coach call me and say, have you seen so and so's Instagram? And I said, no, hold on, let me pull it up. And my jaw dropped straight to the floor.
Mhm.
you know um Inappropriate clothing, inappropriate comments, inappropriate not sending the message of what you want to send on social media. Now, you can't control all of it because sometimes your friends send things that are not even swimmers
Yeah.
and you get into your Instagram, but there is the delete button there. So that's where we see that, we're looking at absolutely everything about the student athlete. I tell the kids on Instagram, post a picture of your bunny rabbit,
Yeah.
or you're out skiing, or you're a family picture with your parents or something. Don't post anything that can be misconstrued.
Mhm.
So we watch the social media. Of course, we're talking to them all the time about academics. What are you taking? We've got a great academic advisor with ACC. We talk about finances. We have a financial advisor as well, which is very, very helpful, that helps you get the most bang for your buck. And I don't know that anybody else does that. We're fortunate enough to have we're small but mighty.
Yeah.
We have a nice group of people. We've worked together for a long, long time, and very grateful for what we do. I think we look forward to going to work in the morning.
Yeah.
You
And just
know,
helping others. And I mean, helping athletes and parents and families navigate the recruiting process and having an organization, as you said, that will kind of lay it out straight in front of you, say, hey, these are the deadlines you need to make sure that you're aware of. These are, some college coaches that are reaching out and say they need this. Like having those resources available are so vital and so helpful in a process that can seem overwhelming for the vast majority, as I said earlier. I mean, my sister went through it for the first time and it was kind of just like deer in the headlights. You have no idea what you don't know until
right?
you're presented with all of the information and then you kind of retroactively look at it and you're like, wow, like I wish I did this, or wow, I wish I had that, or wow, I wish I asked this question. So having, a holistic services that has an academic advisor, that has a financial advisor, that has these resources with all of these coaches across the globe is just so important and so vital. And it's something that, I am going to tell everybody and anybody about because, as I said, it's only going to help these athletes find where they are supposed to go to college and make the process that much easier, for everybody involved.
Right. It certainly streamlines it for you. My favorite word, one of my favorite words. Having everything under one umbrella.
Yeah.
And we don't walk on academic advisors' feet. We work with them, especially from some of the very academic high schools that we work with
Mhm.
in here, and also that comes in with the international kids as
Yeah.
well. They have a lot of their rules are the same, but a lot of them are different too. So we're trying to make sure that everybody is speaking the same language.
Yeah.
And again, we can't make a guarantee. We just can't. That comes up to the coaches altogether and the athletic department. But what we can do is get everyone prepped as well as they possibly can. And then, it's up to them to do their schoolwork, to do
Yeah.
their due diligence in the water.
Yep.
It's one of my very first questions I ask a kid is, are you leading the lane?
Yeah.
That answers so many
Yep.
questions to me when they answer me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's where we really stand out, is the fact that we're involved with you. We're as involved with you as you want to be with us.
Yeah.
Chasing
Two-way street.
chasing the kids down, just like we talked about earlier, communication with coaches is very difficult for us.
Mhm.
Because the kids are like, oh, they're bugging me again. Well, all you got to do is answer.
Takes about, 30 seconds to a minute of your time and then it's a task that you can check off
That's
that
right.
will help
That's
you
right.
for years down the road. Just one last question for you, and then I'll let you get back to your busy schedule. If you could give one piece of advice to every, 14, 15, 16-year-old swimmer with college dreams, what would it be?
Oh,
It's a deep one.
that is a really hard question. Figure out what makes you tick.
Hmm.
Figure out what you figure out where your passion lies and follow it.
Yeah.
Ask questions. Ask a lot of questions of your coaches. Ask for explanations. Oftentimes when you understand how something works, everything clicks better.
Yeah.
Don't be shy to
Yeah.
ask questions. There is no dumb question in any sport. You've got to know how it works. Ask your teachers the same type questions. What do I need to do to be a better student? How do I write this essay better? How do I do a flip turn better?
Mhm.
I think that's important. Set some goals. And I think with swimming too, if I may, I think setting a goal, oh, I want to go to the Olympics. Well, that's way too darn vague.
Yeah.
I am a big believer in setting short-term goals. And I always use the example of, oh, it's May and I'm already thinking about Christmas. Well, in May, the only thing a high school kid is thinking about is getting out of school,
Yeah.
and going to long course. So set short-term goals. And I always think from with swimming August to the holidays, then the holiday goal setting, that little box there. And then reboot, reset, whatever word you want to do from January to April.
Hmm.
And then a little break, right? Before you go into long course season, and then reset again. Just saying, oh, I want to do this by 9 months from now is just not, it's not attainable. It's not
Yeah.
reasonable. It's too far down the list. And then you don't see progress. All you see with that goal is, oh, I'm still 8 seconds off of a future cut or
Hmm.
off of a B cut, versus, oh, I made this swim meet. I improved 1.12 seconds and I'm a little closer now
Yeah.
instead of, oh, I didn't make it. So that's why I like the short-term goals, So, looking ahead and being reasonable, I think would be the best thing, for a young swimmer.
Yeah, absolutely. And those goals also just help keep you on track. It's so easy to set a long-term goal and then kind of fall off, and then you're a month away from, the cutoff from your goal, and you're like, where did all this time go? So having those small goals
Right. And
helps.
you don't see any success.
Yeah, which is so detrimental and so, just disheartening as an athlete, and leads to burnout and leads to all of these other things that you don't necessarily want. So having, those short-term goals and redefining your definition of success doesn't always have to be a time, but, could be dolphin kicks, could be a start, could be, a yardage goal. So just having as many forms of success as you can, I think is also just something that helped me as a swimmer, and I think will help others as well.
Me too. It keeps you going. It keeps you moving forward.
Yes. No,
you know,
absolutely.
Keeps you happy knowing that the little tiny successes equal a big success.
Yeah. A happy swimmer is a fast swimmer is what my coach always used to say.
That's good.
But
And
just
I like racing is training.
racing is straight.
I like that too. That comes straight from the Andrews family,
Oh, really?
and he's pretty fast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just a little bit. Just pretty
just a little bit.
fast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But just wanted to take another second to thank you for sitting down with me. I know this conversation is going to help a lot of, young athletes and parents and families out there.
No,
So
I hope so.
thank you. Well, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. It was filled with so much useful information. As I said in the beginning, the recruiting process can be extremely overwhelming, and there's so many pieces to the puzzle. But Lori has helped kind of streamline the process and hopefully answered some of those burning questions for all of our recruits out there, or even our swimmers who are looking to be recruited in the future. Highly recommend checking out American College Connection. I will put their information here and also link it in the description below. A huge shout out to the International Swim Coaches Association and also Swimming World Magazine. Without their help, this podcast would not be possible. Please like, subscribe, share this with any swimmers, coaches, or parents you know. Here is all of our social media links, and I will also put them in the description below. So with that, I will catch you guys next time.